The plan today is to get as many of these perennials I've got in the ground as possible because it is fall. It is the perfect time to be planting your perennials now. And while we're doing that, I wanted to give you a little bit of a life update. Spent some time in the hospital recently, and we're going to be making a lot of big changes in the garden over the next year that I think kind of overlap with the perennials that I'm planting today. So we'll get into all of that. I am planting perennials that are very specific to a couple of situations. First of all, they're edible perennials. Second of all, they're perennials that specifically do well in a container garden or a more limited space of some kind. So we have some really interesting, unique dwarf varieties that we're going to be planting and experimenting with, things that I've never grown before. The gardens actually look kind of terrible right now, mostly because of the heat waves that we had over the earlier part of the summer, but also because I've just kind of been neglecting the garden overall in my pregnancy, but especially over the last few weeks. But I'm so excited to get this in the ground. I've been trying to get my rosemary to overwinter outside for years, and it just won't. Like, even the varieties like this that say they're really cold hardy, they don't always do very well, especially if you don't mulch them well enough. So I've been bringing my rosemary plants inside, either into the greenhouse or into my house, pretty much the last 2 years. And it works, but it's annoying because the plants can never get that big because they're in a really small container that's portable. They dry out really fast. It's not ideal. So we're going to try planting this Arp Rosemary in the arch trellis bed gardens today. These were my primary gardens. These are kind of what started it all. Like, obviously we have the tea garden area over there, but these gardens are the biggest. They tend to be the most productive. They're the most well located in terms of light. The issue is that's a lot of square footage to fill with annuals every year, especially when I'm going to be having a little kid running around. So the idea is to hopefully lessen the amount of space I have to actively be planting every year by adding more of these perennials. But since these are elevated beds, they're not actually touching the ground, we need to be mindful of plants that aren't going to take up a huge amount of space. So everything that I'm planting today is a dwarf variety or something that will stay under 2 to 3 feet. So we have a couple of herbs. We have a flower, and we also have some berries that I'm going to be putting in. And since I only have 5 of these and there's 6 beds, I'm probably just going to scatter one in each bed for now and then try to scrounge up other things throughout the yard another time that I can divide, because now's a really good time to divide your perennials. If you want to get more plants for free, this is a great way to do that. I've been trying to propagate some lavender stems, so I'll probably put some lavender in here at some point. Maybe some mountain mint, although it can spread a little bit. It's easier to control than regular mint. So everything that I'm thinking about in terms of planning the garden for next year and what kind of content I'm going to be filming for next year is centered around this idea of simplifying things. So not only are we adding perennials to this garden, but we're adding edible perennials so that I can continue that theme, because that's really what I'm most passionate about. But also it's because I want to extend the tea garden a lot more. So all of these plants are things that are not only edible, but things that could be used in tea. So a lot of our focus for content for next year is going to be centered around the tea garden and things like that. So I'm really excited for this shift, because anytime that I share the tea garden with you and recipes, you seem to really enjoy it. So I'm hoping that that continues once I invest even more time and garden space into the concept. So these are the front beds that I'm in. So they're the most visible in my content and from other parts of the yard when I'm just sitting and enjoying the garden. So I decided for these front 2 beds to put my flowering perennials in these ones. There are some chives already over here, and those have the nice purple flowers. And I may divide those and add them to more of the beds because they can be good insect repellents. But I'm actually going to be adding a bushel and berry baby cakes blackberry to this bed. Supposedly, this does not spread as much as a typical blackberry. And again, it will only get to about 2 or 3 feet tall. It does not need anything to climb on. It's more of a bushy habitat. Still, I'm a little bit concerned about it sending out shoots and taking over this whole bed. So what we're actually going to do with this one is we're going to plant it in a container in the bed just to see how it does. And if it seems like it's not spreading really aggressively over the next year or 2, maybe I'll move it out. But this is a really great kind of hack for things that you want to put even in an in-ground bed, but you're concerned about how competitive it might be with other things in your garden. You can plant a container in the ground. No one's going to know unless you tell them, which I am telling you right now. So I have to grab my container, and this is going to be a little bit tricky because I did already have some stuff in this bed, so I don't know how much of the soil is going to be hard to move. I'm just going to break back this mulch layer And basically all I'm doing is I'm transferring the soil that's right here into my container instead. And you do want to make sure you're using a container with drainage, just like for anything else. So fill this up and we'll have a nice big hole by the end of it to transfer our blackberry plant into. Actually, the soil here is nice and fluffy because this is where I had my peanuts planted, even though they did absolutely terribly. So I did talk about this a little bit on the community tab. If you're not over there looking for updates, maybe you're like, why does she keep saying she's going to the hospital? So I went to a regular OB appointment. At those appointments, they pretty much just check your weight, your blood pressure, and then they check the baby's heartbeat on this Doppler machine. And as soon as she put it on my stomach, I was like, what is wrong? Something's wrong. That doesn't sound right. And my OB is so chill. She was like, oh, it's probably just the machine. I'll just get another one. She brought in like an ultrasound machine and she put that up so we could actually see the baby's heart moving. And it was moving really, really fast. So this office is like right next to the hospital that they're associated with. So she's like, I'm just going to send you over there. Like, go over, because they have like an emergency triage unit, and just, let's just see what he's doing. So my appointment was at 10:30 in the morning, and I ended up getting admitted, not at that hospital because they couldn't handle how serious the issue was there. So the baby has a heart arrhythmia, and they didn't know, of course, at first what kind of arrhythmia it was or how much damage it might have already done to his body. Because when the baby's heart is stressed out, what happens is fluid will build up in their abdomen. It's called ascites or hydrops. I have like a whole medical degree now that I have a high-risk baby. So they actually sent us into the city by ambulance. Didn't get into that hospital until, oh my gosh, it was like 9:30 at night. So I'd gone to an appointment at 10:30 in the morning, and now it's 9:30 at night, and we still didn't know what was going on. So they had me hooked up to the fetal monitor, and it was just the most nerve-wracking thing in my life because for a while there, they were saying he did have the fluid building up in his abdomen and that they were going to have to deliver him. And I was almost 27 weeks at this point, so very early to be delivering. And thankfully, that was not the case, obviously. Still very pregnant. But turned out he didn't have the fluid building up in his abdomen. So we must have caught it really, really early, and he hadn't had a chance to get very stressed out by it, which I'm so thankful for. But the way that they treat this kind of arrhythmia, it's called fetal SVT, and they can't give the baby medicine for it. So they have to give the pregnant person medicine for it. Oh my gosh, this hole is like not getting deep enough. I was supposed to put these gloves on. I always do this so that then the medicine can get through the placenta to the baby. So the problem with that is they're giving someone who doesn't need high blood pressure medication. So first they have to do all these tests to make sure my heart is in good shape. And then they have to monitor me for days to make sure when they put me on the medication, it's not doing anything negative to my heart, specifically the QT interval. All right, I think that's as good as it's going to get. Pop this in here, loosen up our root ball a little bit. And they're telling us there's many medications they can try, but they usually have to try more than one before they find one that works for the baby and is also safe for the pregnant person. And we got, once again, extremely lucky because the first medication we tried worked. They still had to monitor me for days, which was mentally very difficult. But his heart flipped into a normal sinus rhythm, and he's been fine ever since. In this bed, I'm going to do the Arp Rosemary. I still have my tomatoes just hanging on for dear life here. They're definitely ready to be taken out, but there's still a few green tomatoes on them, and we're nowhere near we're kind of near our first frost, but I'm trying to get them to get some color before I pull them. And there's a lot of I just chaos sowed some fall stuff in here. So we're just gonna have to work around those little babies. This one will be a lot faster. So mentally, it's just been very, very difficult. As much as I'm, of course, grateful that we found this so early and that he's okay, being kind of strapped to the bed, literally with the fetal monitors for 5 days, so unexpectedly, and worrying about him, it's a nightmare. It was awful. And now that we're home, they still have to monitor everything weekly. So we have a lot more appointments now that we go to, and a number of them are in the city, which is a pretty big hike for us out in the country. And of course, we're gonna do what we gotta do, but it has definitely interfered with my ability to find time to work and film these videos, and also just have the energy to, I don't feel very creative anymore. I just got into the 3rd trimester now. I'm tired. And being out in the garden always feels good and makes me feel better, but it's still just, it's been a lot. Okay, that's our Arp Rosemary. This eggplant looks about ready to pick. It's so funny how they suffered all summer long, and now that it's like it's fall, they're just so happy. Let's just kind of move you a little bit. Thank you. So for this bed, I grabbed some sweet marjoram. I don't know why I don't have this growing already. It's kind of like a more mild oregano. It has a really beautiful purple stems. It definitely has a scent, but it's a lot more subtle. And I'm just gonna put it right here. If you want to add them to your own garden, I'm gonna put all these varieties down below. We also had to cancel our baby moon because I was in the hospital when we were supposed to be on our baby moon. And my baby shower is next weekend, but I was like very scared for a minute there. I wouldn't even get a baby shower. Like maybe I'd get a baby instead, which I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing as long as everyone was okay. But there was just a lot that was very up in the air, and I don't do well when things are like up in the air and you don't know what's gonna happen. So one thing I did want to mention as well is that I have been expending a lot of energy on preparing stuff for my maternity leave because I'm going to be taking 3 months off, hopefully, as much as possible. And a big part of that was pre-recording videos for YouTube because YouTube doesn't like it when you just suddenly stop posting for a very long time. So the content that you'll see over my maternity leave, it's also going to be gardening content, but because of my limited energy and everything and continuing to film weekly videos that are current for you guys right now, like this one, they're just me sitting at a table talking about gardening things. I think they're pretty interesting topics-wise, so I hope you will enjoy them when they do start going up. Hopefully not for a couple more months, but those are ready to go as soon as baby is here. I've had a few people ask me how you can support the channel while I'm out on maternity leave. Obviously, being self-employed, this is a tricky thing to do. I do always have the shirts linked down below the description that I designed that are all like garden themed shirts. This is one of them. You can't really see it right now, but it's a new color that I got. And we've got ebooks down there too. So there will be a lot of like digital stuff, and the t-shirts are self-fulfilling, so I don't have to do anything. You can just order and it will show up on your doorstep. So believe it or not, I've cleared a lot of the garden out already in order to kind of prepare for the baby shower because we're having it out in the back garden. I think it's going to be a really beautiful day, and I'm just so excited that I get to have a baby shower, not only because of this emergency that we were dealing with, but because for 3 years I thought I was never going to have a baby. So I'm really excited to just spend time with people I love and eat good food and celebrate this baby before I get so big that gardening isn't even an option. This is winter savory. I've never grown this before either. We're just adding herbs everywhere we can right now. And I know I've talked about this a million times. Yeah, you can just loosen up those roots if they're kind of circling a little on the bottom. Plants like this are very resilient. You can literally take off the whole bottom like I'm doing now if you want, or just kind of cut slits into the side, whatever you're more comfortable with. But if you think about a lot of these woody herbs, they like to be propagated by the stem anyway. So how many roots do they really need if they can survive just on a single stem? At least that's the way I see it. So it's so cool to see how tiny they are and how they're just going to get so big next year. I have one more, which is the flowering one. I don't know if you can even see this, but my cucamelons that I'm growing on the trellis, they just reached over to these pepper plants and they're just growing along those now too. I think the cucamelon vines are so pretty. So this, believe it or not, is actually the first rose plant that I've ever planted. I've never had roses in my garden. They scare me, but this is a Petite knockout rose. It only gets about 2 feet tall and the buds are really tiny, bright red roses. I'm so excited to have this in the garden, especially in the front bed. It's gonna be so pretty next year. So I am kind of letting the blank spots dictate where I'm putting these at this point, because there is still stuff. This is actually probably the prettiest bed left in the garden, honestly. It's just some peppers and nasturtiums. The nasturtiums always do this where they look like they've just completely died in the heat of summer and then they bounce back and they're even more beautiful in the fall. So if yours do that, leave them. They will come back. And there is our rose. There is also some thyme here. You can't really see it, but it's already been planted in this bed, and some oregano in this bed as well. So that's why I didn't do any oregano or thyme. Okay, so last week we got our blueberries, strawberries, and walking onions in the other beds, which we did film. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and check it out. We got our perennial herbs, flowers, and berries into these beds. Now, the only things that I have left to plant for fall, because I'm trying to take it easy, this is me taking it easy, are the things I'm gonna multiply and propagate from other parts of the yard, which I don't think we'll do a whole video on those, but if you want to know which ones I end up doing, I can put a list out on the community tab for you. And then we're going to plant the garlic and the green stalks, and then things are really going to start slowing down. So if you have any last minute requests for videos before I do go on maternity leave, I'm still filming these weekly right now. Let me know what you want to hear about. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.